Hello and welcome to another video from welcome to another live stream, and we're going to go ahead and get Ala Toledo on here so he can tell me what to do.
Hey.
Hello, Ala Toledo, and welcome to another live stream from the only channel you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and begin as I always do by reading another chapter from my book. And this week we'll be reading chapter 7. Oh, I guess I'll get it. Let me get this thing back on here so I can see if I got my cat. Yeah, I'm pointed at me. All right. Chapter 7. Every land and first off, I need to do a sound check. Is it sound okay over here, over where you're at? Because I got the fan blowing on me. Did I lose you?
No, it sounds good.
Okay.
It sounds good.
All right, chapter 7. Every land animal and every bird of the heavens and every small living thing and every fish in the sea will dread you and be in fear of you, because I am giving them to you to serve as food, just as I previously gave you vegetation to serve as food. And that's from Genesis chapter 9, verses 2 and 3. One of the best known verses dealing with natural law is the verse found at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28. According to the King James Version of the Bible, this verse says, "And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth over the earth." Linguistically, this verse can be understood as it was intended. But in modern English, it sounds as if God is granting mankind permission to determine for himself the best way to treat the earth and all of the living things that dwell upon it. But as originally recorded, that is not the case at all. A more accurate rendering of this passage would sound more like this: God blessed them, and God said to them, Increase in number to completion, and cause the earth to be at rest, having rulership over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and the animals of the land. Another verse that confirms that this rendering is more accurate can be found at Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15, which says, "And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress and to keep it." The two words translated as dress and keep are the Hebrew words abad and shamar, which means care for and protect. If we take into consideration the two concepts found at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28 and chapter 2, verse 17 in context, then there is no getting around the fact that God was not giving man permission to do as he pleased, but was in fact commanding him by instilling into him the instinctive drive to ensure that nothing bad would happen to any of the living things in God's forest. According to the cults of Christianity and Judaism, God punishes people who break his law. But according to the Bible, breaking God's law brings about its own punishment. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 15 says, "I am putting before you life and prosperity, death and destruction." Verses such as these have nothing whatsoever to do with burning people alive in some underground afterlife realm based on their obedience to some arbitrary church rules. Such passages are simple reminders that if mankind takes care of the birds of the air, fish of the sea, and land animals, we would benefit. But if mankind failed in his responsibilities, we would suffer. Satan's suggestion to Eve that she would be better off if she simply disregarded God's law and decided for herself what was the best way to live has had dire consequences for all of the human family. In fact, even Satan has suffered on account of this horrific lapse in judgment. At Ezekiel chapter 29, verses 3 through 5, God tells the ruler of the empire, "I will drag you out into the desert by hooks placed in your mouth, and the fish of the sea, birds of the air, and land animals will attack you." This verse is very obviously a direct reference to the verse found at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28, which commanded man to care for the fish of the sea, birds of the air, and land animals. In this passage, the ruler of the empire is called Pharaoh, a direct reference to the ancient Pharaoh Osiris, who in the Bible is called Halel. The word that in our English translations is rendered as Lucifer. It should also be obvious that Satan is not destroying the earth on his own. All who participate are suffering. Satan, along with all of the wicked angels that are obedient to him, as well as all who have participated in civilization, be it voluntarily or under duress, or suffering as a result of disobedience to God's natural law. The pyramids and obelisks and stars and stripes, predatory birds, and all-seeing eyes of the Egyptian empire are the same symbols that have been adopted by each and every demonic empire since, including the ruling world empire of our day. The judgment against Pharaoh recorded thousands of years ago still applies to all of the world's current pharaohs, whether they call themselves presidents, prime ministers, emperors, kings, or any other of countless honorary titles bestowed upon Satan's highest-ranking worshipers. We, living at this time, are experiencing the result of man's mismanagement of God's forest. The damaged relationship between humans and the other species that we share this planet with should be obvious. Creatures that, like ourselves, were designed to maintain the beauty and balance of nature now inflict nearly as much harm to human society as human society has inflicted upon them. The prophecy of Ezekiel chapter 29 has proven true. There we go. Who's with us today, Ala Toledo?
Well, we got a lot of people, so let me try to get through all these. Uncle Nesta, he's the first one today, says, hello, God bless. There are many Jewish people coming to faith in Jesus. Hallelujah. And he extends many thanks to you for doing the live streams. Next is Kitchcool. He says, hey, guys. I guess it's always late there, but he always shows up. Mishu says, hello. Synaptic Problem says, hi, y'all. Marshmallow says, hi, everyone. Sleepy Girl 85. Hey, everyone. Glad to be here another week. Angel Forster says hello. Douglas Aliff says hello from Las Vegas. Ellis Marchand Ryan says hello. BMW guy says hello all. Hope all is well. Henry, hope you are not under hurricane attack. Dale Rockwell says hey from Stevens Point, Pennsylvania. Happy to see everyone. Chester Richardson says hello, everyone. Hope all are doing well. Deep South Homestead says hello, Sustenance. Glad the storm didn't bother you. It turned before it came to us. Let's see. Simple Sister Living says hi, y'all. And Randy Thomas says hello. Three Red Stars says I made it this time, and you're looking good, Henry. First question comes from Uncle Nesta. He says, can we all say a prayer for Wheezy, a friend in the hospital? Also, I could use a job. Laughing my ass off.
What, do you want me to stop and pray now? Let's all pray in our own way, silently after the... It's not that I'm against prayer, but you and I had this talk like last week or the week before, about praying for things, and just how we should go about doing that. It's like there's examples when Jesus was asked how should we pray, he said, well, don't do it like the religious leaders, pray in front of a bunch of people. Go in your inner room and pray. But then again, at the same time, Jesus prayed publicly. So it's one of those things where I don't know if it's, we'll have to think about that, huh? About whether we want to start, we may even start opening with prayer.
Well, maybe some sort of reading from Scripture. Does that count?
Yeah, I was reading a few scriptures on the way in. So maybe we've got it covered. So that's Wheezy. That's Wheezy and a job.
Yep, and he wants a job too, I guess.
Doesn't really want one, but can't get along without one. Is probably what he's.
It doesn't. It's for everybody, right?
Yeah, it's let's all just pray for him to get money. Let's not pray for him to get a job.
Yeah, no work. That's the ideal. Synoptic Problem says he wants to see if you can talk something about the different creation accounts in Genesis 1 verses 2.
I think Genesis is not really one book. I don't know how, so many people go and they try to, you can be like a forensics expert with books. And so there are people who have written this long, drawn out, elaborate explanation for why Genesis seems to be a bunch of books. And then you've got the guys that are just really secular, that just are going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, is that it was a whole bunch of books, and maybe that's what, maybe Noah brought a bunch of books onto the ark with him. I don't know, but he decided that when he put them all together, he didn't name them, like the creation account, the fall of man, the story of Cain and Abel. So it was just later that somebody somewhere along the line said we need to start breaking this up into smaller parts and adding names and numbers to stuff, because Genesis is obviously not one story. It's like, in the beginning God created man, and then you go a couple of chapters later and it says, and in the beginning God created man. So it's more than one. It's more than one story. And it seems to me that a lot of the books in the Bible are like that. They're actually collections of books that have been combined into one book. And then some books in the Bible are actually just bits and pieces of books. Like I think, Chronicles, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, First Kings, Second Kings, First Samuel, Second Samuel. Those are really just one book. Like Samuel is a book. We call it First Samuel and Second Samuel because somewhere in the ancient past somebody split it in two. But it's obvious it was split in two because, you got this half and you got this half, and they overlap. So there's like an entire chapter of each of those books that is word for word identical. So this one ends with a chapter, and this one begins with that same chapter. Is that enough? Did anybody learn? Did anybody learn anything from that? Because I think I don't know. It's probably a lot of people don't know that how the Bible was put together, and that's okay because nobody knows. No one left records of how that happened. We can just look at it and try to figure it out, but there ain't nobody knows.
Couple more hellos. South Georgia Hydroponics says howdy, folks. Karen Bain says hi. It's Karen Bain. Uncle Nesta says no. I actually want a job. I need the purpose.
Oh,
he needs a purpose.
Okay.
Dale Rockwell wants to. He mentions was that crazy that the pyramid was in the background of the Las Vegas shooting videos?
Well, what's crazy about it is that I never knew that. It took Usama sent me a picture. It was a satellite image of that area because it's not. And I guess it's logical that the media is handling it the way they do because the shooter was in this building and the people died down here, and so that's what they're talking about. They're talking about here was a shooter. Here was the victims, but if you look at it from a satellite image, that's not exactly how it went down. The shooter was here, and the victims were here, but right in front of the victims was a sphinx, and a pyramid, and an obelisk. And it's just it's one of those things. Like we talked about this on the pod. Is the podcast up yet, Al of Toledo? Hello. Did we lose him? Did I lose YouTube? Well, hopefully he'll get back with us in a minute. But anyway, yeah, uh-oh. I dropped Skype. Hold on, folks. Bear with me. I'm just a mere mortal trying to figure out all this godlike mechanism that makes this thing work. You'll have to call me. Anyway, yeah, the pyramid is. We've got a podcast. I don't know if it's up yet or not. I've sent the audio into Ala Toledo, and he's got his own audio from his end. He's the one that puts all that together and then puts it on the website. So hopefully it's there. And we talked about the connection between the shooting and the pyramid and the obelisk and the Sphinx, and see, it's all related back, but it's not necessarily that these Freemasons have got some kind of grand plan for doing that. You know, we know what we can see with our eyes, so we have these really, really rich guys. They're physical, fleshly beings. We can see them. And then there's us, and we're physical, fleshly beings, and we can see ourselves. So we know that's real, but there are the guys that tell the insanely evil rulers of the world what to do, and those guys are invisible. That's the demons. And so if somebody goes up to the top of a hotel and shoots a whole bunch of people in front of a pyramid, it's likely that that was for a purpose, but the guy doing the shooting may not have known what that purpose was. The elite of the world may not have known what that purpose was, but it's just part of the ritual human sacrifices that have been going on for 6,000 years. And as far as we know, the very first ritual, well, we know that Cain was the first person to perform ritual human sacrifice. Glitch! Was it a glitch? Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Are you there? I know I answered that right. And I shut down. Call back. Oh, he wants me to call.
Hey, you there?
Yeah, this is not looking professional. I have to go down to the networks and see if they've got anybody looking for a... Uncle Nestor, have you ever worked with...
Yeah, maybe that's what we need. Yeah.
The money's good. Ask Ala Toledo.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So.
Oh no, we lost him again. That's okay. We'll get him back. And if we don't, I can ramble on for hours. But you know, one of the things, since I haven't got any access to anybody, you know what though, I am. Hey, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You know what we need to talk about after this is over with is how I can get on YouTube just to see what's going on, because I think I could probably get my bearings if you for whatever reason couldn't, like this kind of stuff was going on. But right now I'm kind of like just sitting in a room by myself talking. So, are you there now? Oh well. But anyways, a lot of this information is covered in the podcast, this week's podcast, and you know, where I live, we just had this event, Cruising the Coast, and so it's one of the things that's free. It's a walking distance from my house, and so we go, and we kind of can't stop ourselves from going. We've been doing this for 20 years or so, and just it's what we do. But you know, anytime you're around a great big event like that, then you know you're not surrounded by people that love you. I don't care. Like, this was a country music concert. It wasn't like a Ku Klux Klan meeting or something. This is just people listening to country music. But This car show that I just went to, it's all basically retired folks, and they're pretty decent people, and a lot of them, their whole motivation is that they want to reminisce about these old cars. Another thing is, they're like me, they don't want to throw anything away, so when their car gets to the point where it's not worth salvaging, they salvage it anyway. And so quite a few of the cars that are going up and down the road are just simply everyday people trying to not throw something away. And that's the kind of people that I think I am. But when I get out into that, first off, all the way down the beach where this event is taking place are American flags at half-mast. Now, this is the really goofy thing about that. It's almost like a scorecard or something. It's a scoreboard. It's not real. I mean, what happened in Las Vegas was not unusual. Every day, let's say 1,000 people are violently murdered for some kind of political cause, whether it's U.S. troops lobbing bombs over some border, or whether it's even in a drug war, or like this guy. This is probably somebody that wanted to get even with the world, and for whatever reason, he thought people at a country music concert were more deserving of getting killed than anybody else. But if you were to look at the number of people killed on that day and compare it to the number killed the day before and the number killed the day after, probably isn't any difference. Every day, however many people get killed, that's how many people get killed. And if 100 of them die in one spot, or if they die spread out evenly over the surface of the planet, it really doesn't make much difference. Well, I'm going to go ahead and don't hang up. I'm going to see if I can shut down Skype. And are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, shoot, I was grabbing at straws.
No. So looks like people want to talk a little bit more about the Las Vegas event, and I'm not sure if I got out there, but people can go to the website and look at the podcast, and we talk a little bit about that. Couple comments though. Kitch Cool says it just seems strange that one guy can get 400 pounds of equipment up 30 floors, sets up a concealed sniper nest, disarms fire alarms, removes a 800-pound hurricane-proof window with no training and no motive.
Yeah, it seems to me that, I mean, anytime something is big enough to get in the news, then all the conspiracy theories get started. I don't latch on to every conspiracy theory, but people that were down in the crowd said the bullets were coming from the second floor, which they may not have known what they were talking about, because I've got this shooting range over here, and I'm used to it. There's shooting going on all the time, but sometimes when the air is dense or when the air is not dense, it sounds like the bullets are coming from somewhere else, or it sounds like they're shooting closer, and I'll actually go out into the woods to see if someone's in my woods hunting. So the whole thing is, it's something we'll never know. Just like the Kennedy assassination, just like the 9/11 attacks. We know that the story that we're being told is a lie, and I think it's safe to go with that and say, yeah, that story's a lie, but when we start trying to explain what actually happened, we can't do it. We just know that something ain't right.
Uncle Nesta says when he was in Las Vegas in 2009, he was in the shooter's suite on the 32nd floor.
Wow.
And then, yeah, coincidence. Well, maybe not the exact one, but
well, Ketchicool, that our last comment, Ketchicool was lives in Manchester, and he was like the building where they had the Manchester terrorist attacks a couple of months ago. It was right across the street from his flat. So a lot of us are being touched on a personal level by this stuff.
TJ Warner says he said something about the 32nd floor and number 32. Is there some significance with the number 32?
Yeah, 32nd degree Freemasons. That's part of that sacred geometry from ancient Egypt, which is another finger pointing that this is more than what they're saying. Why do they have all this weird stuff going on? Why is it all these codes? don't know. We'll find out, because there's people that know, and after the resurrection, we'll run into them at some point.
Let's see. T.J. Warner also makes a comment about many more people were killed in Massachusetts, I think he means, or Mass, with Native Americans than this particular event. And I think that kind of goes to your point that we talked about on the podcast about blood sacrifices.
Yeah, every day Satan requires in order to keep civilization going, Satan requires that human beings be willing to sacrifice their children in blood sacrifices. That's a big teaching of the Bible, and so we think of an altar with a priest wearing a costume, put a person on the altar and kill him, and sometimes it happens like that. But war itself, and there's scriptural backing for this, war itself is simply a ritual blood sacrifice that human beings engage in to appease the God of civilization. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be certified to do that. You know, if you're a wacky millionaire on the top floor of a casino, or if you're an 18-year-old operating a drone, you know, it's all make Satan happy.
Uncle Nesta says, yes, it was that exact suite that he was in. They had multiple rooms, and it was the one facing the Luxor. Let's see. Marshmallow says, what would be the purpose of them lying to us about everything that happened? And Kitchcool chimes in, maybe it's martial law?
I don't know. Well, somebody said it was all some kind of setup for a gun grab. You know, there's one of my friends, Destination Human, said it was. But when you try, like I say, we can know that the story they're giving us is not the truth, but we can't know what the truth is. You know, all we can know is it's a lie. You know, I guess if we were top of the pyramid people, we would know. And they don't, you know, they're all slapping each other on the back and laughing. You know, at their slaves, trying to figure out what's going on.
Chester Richardson says he would not go to any big events anymore. And that kind of coincides, I guess, with Cruising the Coast, which Deep South Homestead says he loved Cruising the Coast when he went a few years ago. He loved seeing old cars.
It is, well, here's my take on it over the years. When I was young and healthy, it was the funnest thing I could think of. And I had a kind of idealized vision of what hot rodding was about or automotive restoration was about. And I actually ended up working in that field. And I'm one of those guys. I love to see a car that's been thrown away, brought back to life. And they've got that down to a science now. Back in the day, I was telling someone today, Marshmallow, I was telling Marshmallow that you used to, if you had a Model T with a Chevy small block and a Mustang 2 front end, what that meant is that you went to a junkyard, you got a Model T, you got something with a Chevy small block, and you got a Mustang, and you got those parts out of those vehicles. And that's a very like honorable goal to shoot for. It's a lot of work, but that's the way it was done. Nowadays, you go down and you buy a recently manufactured Model T. You know, you can get a complete Model T well, not a complete one. No one wants to build the engines anymore, but the frames are available to fit any kind of suspension and it bolt right onto a Model T. And the Model T bodies, and they're making metal Model T bodies now, I think. And then if you want a Chevy engine, you can buy a Chevy small block engine that isn't even manufactured by Chevy. You know, we're talking about an aluminum block manufactured by some corporation. Put that in there, and then even the Mustang 2 front ends, what they call, when someone tells you they have a Mustang 2 front end in their car, what it means is they have a front end that they bought from a specialty shop that was manufactured to appear to be a Mustang 2 front end. So these cars, a lot of these cars you see are not restored hot rods. They're things that were completely fabricated, brand new, from very expensive parts. You know, a lot of the stuff that's down there is, you're talking 100,000, 250,000. I've seen $1 million cars at Cruising the Coast.
Let's see. Uncle Nesta brings up our next topic. He wants to talk a little bit about RFID chips and whether those are the mark of the beast. He thinks they are.
I think that here's a deal with that. This isn't new. The people that are ruling the world are they're still children of Satan. They've been doing this for years, and that kind of stuff has been going on forever. I mean, there was a time, when it was feudalism, and you pretty much were not allowed to live anywhere except for on the king's property, and the king would choose someone to run that property, and you basically belonged to the king, and you couldn't even move off the property, and at that point, pretty much, and that was the way it was done. And I guess as time went on, more and more indigenous peoples were captured and brought into the system until we get to the point now where I don't know that there really are any indigenous peoples anymore. They say there's people running through the forest somewhere who've never seen, cars or radios or airplanes. I don't buy into that. I think pretty much everybody's on board now. And that's the mark of the beast, whether that person ever gets an RFID chip or not. I did a video a while back about the mark of the beast. And if you read the book of Revelation, it talks about two groups. The groups that have chosen to take the mark. And then there's another group that said to have no choice at all. They have to. It says all have taken the mark of the beast. Well, those two groups are humans and angels. Angels are given a choice. The angels have chosen to take sides with Satan. Those are the ones who have chosen the mark of the beast. And in fact, I think the word that's used is used in other parts of the Bible, and it means like hungrily grabbed at or lunged at, to take hold of, take possession of the mark of the beast. And there are others, and the word it uses is like a forced thing. People are forced to take the mark of the beast, and that's humans. That's us. We all have the mark of the beast when we're born. I mean, it says no one can buy food, or no one can buy or sell or do anything without the mark of the beast. Well, who doesn't buy food? Who doesn't have to have a job? See how I work that in there?
Yeah. Dale Rockwell says every time a new thing comes up, it's the mark of the beast that is going to be something that we don't see coming. And then Simple Sister Living says, it's my understanding that the hand forehead mark has to do with God's word and is a Hebrew idiom. Forehead, keeping God's word in mind, hand, doing his work. Satan's mark would be doing the opposite.
Well, as always, the right hand is like a metaphor for a rulership, governmental rulership. Like the left hand and right hand. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. In the book of what is it, Malachi? One of them. It's like chapter 3. It may be Malachi, chapter 3 of one of the books that was written after the Jews returned from Babylon. It says there we saw Joshua the high priest, so he's a religion, he's at the left hand, and with Satan at his right hand standing before the throne of God. So when the Jews returned and they went into the temple, where they went back to the temple arrangement, that temple arrangement was governed directly by Satan. So that's why it says that Satan was at the right hand of the high priest when Jerusalem was restored. But in the book of Revelation, it talks about Jesus being at the right hand of God. So there's a change from Satan ruling the world to Jesus ruling the world. And we're going to talk about that more as time goes on. I'm producing a new video right now called Melchizedek. And in that it talks about the change of rulership from Satan's chosen rulers to God's chosen ruler.
Well, Uncle Nesta says the RFID chips are made of silicon, and silicon is made of sand, and a house built on sand cannot stand the storm. Whereas the foundation should be on solid rock, which is Jesus. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you and I were talking like a week ago about the image in the book of Daniel, where it's the feet are partly of iron and partly of clay.
Oh, right, in the podcast. But I think what he's saying is something along the lines of that parable that Jesus said about building a house on sand versus solid rock. I'm
Yeah,
not
well,
sure how.
that makes sense. I mean, we use that metaphor all the time. Don't build your house on sand, or have a firm foundation, and pretty much everybody understands what that means. Metaphorically. It's not just talking about an actual physical structure. It's talking about our faith, or our government, our way of life.
Couple more hellos. Keeping continuity says, "Hey, sustenance. What are we seeing happening on Earth?" And then Patricia Ribrick says, "Oops, I'm late." Couple things kind of tying into this RFID idea and back to the Las Vegas. Douglas Alith says maybe the goal is a one world government, and G.J. Warner says they have an agenda, create the way for their master Satan, aka Lucifer, aka Halal.
Hallel.
Hello.
That's
Whatever that is.
if you look at in the Jewish faith, they have this list of all these different archangels and what their positions are, and I think it's associated with the planets, and so they're all end with El, and it's like, well, in the Bible it's Michael, it's Mikael, which we call Michael, and then there's Gabriel, which is Gabriel, and then there's Lucifer. But see, Lucifer's been changed. In the Bible, they change his name to Lucifer from Heliel, and there's plenty more. I mean, that's what the El at the end of the name means. That's not that. I mean, it's not that everybody that's in the Bible whose name ends in El is an archangel. There's a lot of names that have El at the end of them, but that is part of it, because El means God.
But what about the point about it all being one world government driving us towards one world?
Here's the way I look at that, and I'm sure people will disagree with me. And I don't even know why anybody cares. It's Satan's government, so we've always been under a one world government. But I think where we're headed is that in the very beginning, the capital of Satan's empire was Egypt. That's why the pyramids are there. That's all of that stuff, all of that great big stone stuff is tributes to Satanism. And eventually what happened in Egypt, and you go back and try to break it down politically or whatever, what actually happened is they stripped the land, and so eventually all the people who live there in the Valley of the Kings, or that area, they were having to have their food shipped from a mile away, then 10 miles away, then 100 miles away. Where they were getting their food is the land of Goshen, where the Jews settled at the base of the Nile River. But eventually that wouldn't support the civilization anymore, so the solution wasn't to invent trains or trucking or any of that stuff. They just packed up and moved to Assyria. So the Assyrians were the empire for a while until they stripped their land. And this is all recorded in history, that the people who study desertification, that's where you convert a rainforest into a desert. They say that the very first spot ever turned into a desert was right around the pyramids, and that they have somehow gone in with equipment and they've found a pattern. It just kind of spirals around Egypt. So you go to Assyria, then you go to Phoenicia, then Greece, then Rome, then England, and now basically the whole world is being turned into a desert. And all of those empires were Satan's empire. But the rulership of the world took place from those locations. It's just that without the infrastructure, it was very difficult for Satan to rule, say, China from the base of the pyramids. But we're at that point now where total world domination is technologically possible, and the capital of Satan's empire is about to be moved from Washington, D.C. Before that it was London, before that it was the Vatican, and now it's about to be Jerusalem. Jerusalem is about to be the world power. That's going to be where Satan's throne is. And at that time, something significant will happen to make this seemingly multiple world governments turn into a single world government. And I don't even know how that could be, because I mean, I've got friends all over the world, and every one of them considers themselves to be living in one of the states of the United States. I had a friend in Germany. He said, we're just another state. You know, whatever America tells us to do, that's what we do. And that's basically the way China is run by American politicians. You know, Venezuela, who's supposed to be our enemy, is, you know, that's the American government runs that. The only two that seem kind of really, really disconnected are Iran and North Korea. And that's why, you know, there's so much propaganda about, you know, we've got to straighten those bad people out and get them to be righteous like Americans, you know. We've got these weapons of mass destruction that are designed specifically to make bad people like, you know, that guy in charge of Korea turn into good people.
3 more hellos. Katie Cooks and Crafts says, I never watch live, so I'm glad to be here tonight. Andrea Creech says, I married into a car lovers, super mechanics, and angels. I'm blessed. If the body is a car and you're very smart about it, I'm lucky. You are awesome. I'm glad you and yours are safe. And then the third one is Moving On says, howdy y'all. I'm late, but I made it. Next question comes from South Georgia Hydroponics. What is your take or interpretation of the book of Jonah?
I think Jesus explained that. Why, you know, Jonah is an oddball book. That's where a prophet is sent to Nineveh. Nineveh was part of the. That was the Assyrians. The Assyrians were really bad. I mean, if you go look at historically what the Assyrians did, even just look at the little bits and pieces that are in the Bible, the Assyrians were just really bad people. They would take people and conquer them. Like, they'd go into a nation and conquer the nation, and they would bring back captives like the queen and king and all of the congressmen and senators and judges. And they would build, like at one point they built this palace supposedly. And they filled the walls of the palace with, the insulation they used were live people. And so they built this palace with these people in the walls alive. And supposedly for like weeks, the king, was Ashurbanipal, could hear those people moaning in his walls. That was like the most ultimate wonderful thing, to have a house with human beings for insulation. So these were bad people. And Jonah was sent to these people, and the whole story of Jonah inside the belly of the fish is kind of indicative of where the meaning of things like oceans in the Bible, or seas. There's so much about water in the Bible. It says that Jonah went into the belly of a fish, and the fish was in the ocean, and Jesus went into the belly of the earth. And so the earth, it's the point that's being made is the earth is like a floating in an ocean, the ocean of space. And that's why all these flat earthers believe that, you know, NASA's lying because outer space is made of water. I don't think it's made of water, but if you look at like all the old books about the ancient gods, they're all fighting over this ocean. And I think the ocean they're talking about is the Milky Way. The Milky Way is always called a sea. In fact, I think the description in the book of Genesis of the Garden of Eden, where it says there's a river that runs through it, and it's to the north of Hiddekel. The river to the north is called Hiddekel, and the river to the east is called something else. And I think that's a description of the Milky Way as it appeared back in those days. I know it's crazy talk. I always do crazy talk, and I guess people are okay with it. The subscriber base isn't dropping, so we're all right.
Couple comments about the one world government. Patricia Ribrick says, order out of chaos will bring about one ruler. Then Dale Rockwell says, the restaurant McDonald's is the new world order. And Mountain Truth says, replies to Dale, I knew clowns were going to take over.
Yeah, well, they have even got McDonald's and Walmart's. That's like, you know, and I guess they could open up a Sears and a Walmart, and then you have the trifecta of evil. You know, put Disney Studios in there, put a pyramid on the roof. Well,
Next question.
yeah, the whole thing is with the, when you talk about bringing order out of chaos, that is what the Antichrist does. I mean, that's, most of these prophetic type religions like the Seventh Day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, that's their thing, is they're looking for some world leader who is going to make everything work, and that's the Antichrist. And if you read how how this individual is described in the Bible, that's pretty much it. That whenever they're saying peace and security, that's when sudden destruction is to be instantly upon them as the pains of birth of a pregnant woman. Order out of chaos, Antichrist.
And Marshmallow says, clowns to the left of me and jokers to the right.
Yeah.
Stuck in the middle.
That's the world we live in. But just bringing that up, I think I need to go back and talk about something that was spoken of earlier that I didn't really cover. Yeah, Chester Richardson says that he's thinking it's just not a good idea to go to a big event, and I think that's really true. It's kind of one of those things. Why would you even want to go to a big event? It's one of the things I said. I really got into this. I love cruising the coast. I just love seeing all these things being restored, and it's nice to be around people, and you don't have to interact with them too close and hear all of their solutions for world problems by sending some people from this area back across that border and dropping bombs on the other side of that border. That kind of stuff is just terrible to have to listen to. And if you go to cruising the coast and you have any kind of a conversation that lasts more than a minute, you're going to run into that stuff, because these people, these cars, half of them got American flags sticking out of the roofs and all that kind of foolishness. But I was thinking about this NFL thing. These guys are going to these football games, and instead of whatever, they stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance or something. I don't know. But I know that every single event that I've ever been at where you're forced, where you're absolutely expected to do acts of worship to a colorful piece of cloth that's been going around from Egypt to Assyria, Phoenicia, Greece, Rome. It's the same colors, the same stripes, same stars. Just don't even go there. There's so many ways around that. Don't make a point of getting to a football game early so you can make your, get down on your knees, and just avoid that. Why would anybody even want to go to like with me, why in the heck do I go to cruising the coast? I don't even really want to go anymore. I'm too old for this stuff. It's difficult to get there, difficult to get home. Once you get there, you got to do a lot of walking, and it's just a bad. I mean, there's a lot of. You can believe that when those people were getting shot in front of that pyramid, that somebody in there was a decent human being. This system is too messed up to just think that the people listening to this live stream right now are the only people hip to how wicked it is. So, just if there are ways to avoid going to big events, do it. I've got, my wife and I don't have a whole lot we can do together where we both kind of enjoy it. And so it's hard for us to walk away from that. But like a football game, why would anybody go to a football game? Or every now and then there'll be some kind of big social event that's run by the government, and they're going to get up there and pray to a flag or sing a song to a flag. That stuff is goofy. Don't go. If you're going to go, wait till that junk is over with. That's usually at the opening ceremonies,
Let's see. Humi, speaking about large events, Humi says they live in Las Vegas, and they would never go to a huge event held next to a tower that just anyone can rent a room.
Yeah, there you go. Well, there's always ways to protect yourself. The way I get away with being who I am is that I just don't cut the grass, so I've got weeds up to about here. Even if they send the cops. The sustenance and coverings over there committing a murder. The cops get in my yard. They're like, call the choppers in, drop somebody off of ropes. We're not going in there.
Let's see. Going back to cruising the coast and your interest in hot rods, Dale Rockwell says we're going to have to give up hot rods when the man Jesus comes back. Uncle Nesta says, You ain't got to care about it. No hot rods if you're in the presence of Christ himself. But then Andrea Creech says Jesus drives one, believe me, very fast.
There's a scripture somewhere in the book of Proverbs, I think, that it says that Yahweh is coming in his fury. And when I was in a Jehovah's Witness, that was like a regular joke that, when we were wearing our shirts and ties, it's like, hey, any idea why God is so fond of Chrysler products? What are you talking about? It says he's coming in a fury. Plymouth Fury, okay. So, but yeah, I could give you a lot of Bible jokes that I've learned over my course of my life.
The next question comes from Karen Bain. Do you think each of us has a guardian angel?
There seems to be some. There seems to be. It's like I say all the time. Everything that is not necessarily in the Bible, but there's a lot of people that believe that they have a guardian angel, and I always say that if people believe it, then there's something to it. It may be that every one of us has thousands of angels looking out for us, and maybe there are individual angels assigned to us. Like when a person is demon possessed. Well, what's a demon? It's a bad angel. And so maybe those of us who are not possessed by demons are possessed by righteous angels, or maybe like the man that was possessed by legion. Legion means 1,000. Doesn't specify 1,000 in the scripture, but that's an individual that had 1,000 guardian angels, not necessarily looking out for his best interest. But what do I think? That's the question, is what do I think? Well, in the Bible it talks about people who are full, and it talks about people that are empty. And the ones that are full are either full of a bad spirit or full of a good spirit. And then all the others who are called empty, perhaps they have no spirit, and that spirit maybe being the angels. So there's, do we all have guardian angels? Maybe not. Maybe some have no connection to anything in the spirit world. When you see these mindless drones just wandering around looking for something to do, and completely empty, spiritually empty people, maybe some of us just cannot connect for whatever reason. The floodwaters have come down. God's spirit has been replaced by Satan's spirit. Nothing works right.
Patricia Ribrick responds to that by saying, at the moment of my death, I pray my guardian angel takes me for a flight above the earth to see all the beautiful sights I never got to see.
Join the army. You don't get to see all the beautiful sights, but you get to see quite a bit. Actually, the Navy, maybe, because that's what I was in. I was in the Navy. I got to go see stuff. If I didn't join the Navy, I would have seen South Mississippi, Alabama, tip of Florida. That's about it.
Humi comments about the pyramid in Las Vegas. He said he went there, and you can feel the evil inside there with all the satanic images inside. And then Uncle Nesta says, oh yeah, the Luxor is evil. Dale Rockwell says they do call it Sin City. And Mountain Truth says they went to Las Vegas once for a concert. Fast taillights the next morning, meaning they left. The place gave them the creeps.
When I saw that, whenever Usamal sent me that link, I was telling another Destination Human about it, and they sent me a video, and it said, if Nicolas Cage is not a Freemason, why is he so obsessed with purchasing a pyramid, or something like that? And so I guess this is like, and that's an old video. That wasn't something somebody produced recently. That's something somebody figured out on their own before they had a mass shooting in front of the thing. And I've seen pictures, that video I did or series I did called The All-Seeing Eye. I think the top of the pyramid is like a big TV set, because I've seen different pictures of it with different things flashing across that top, and one of the things I saw was that all-seeing eye from the dollar bill on the top of the pyramid. I don't think it was Photoshop. I think that thing actually projects images onto its little pointy TV set roof.
Dale Rockwell made a comment earlier about, I think maybe something you said about where he says, you say anything about dualism to fundamental Christians and they wig out. Not sure what you said.
I had a guy, well, yeah, I had a guy that is college educated and he's really, really enlightened. I mean, he's got an open mind to a lot of things. But I told him one time, I said, you know, all religions are just dualism, you know, that's yin and yang, that's wicked and against righteous, dark against light, and even especially, you know, the Bible, because the Bible from the very beginning, there's a story of these two brothers, Cain and Abel, and then you've got another story right after that, you know, Abraham and his brother, and then Jacob and Esau, and then Isaac and, no, it's, was it Isaac and the guy from Moby Dick? I can't remember. Ishmael, Isaac and Ishmael. And then there's Jacob and Esau, and then there's well, throughout the Bible, there's just stories of brothers, and all those brothers represent those two qualities of good and evil. You know, and it's always about government. It's always who gets to rule, the righteous king or the wicked king. And that's the story of all ancient mythologies. You know, Romulus and Remus. What is that thing called? The twins. Constellation. Gemini is a story of Romulus and Remus, and it's the Greek version of Romulus and Remus, but it's Pollux and Castor and Pollux. And even in Chinese, South American, all of the ancient mythologies are stories of two brothers fighting over rulership, and that's basically the story of the prodigal son. There's two brothers, and one is the rightful ruler and one is not, and the one who's not demands his inheritance before it's time, and he wrecks it. You know, same thing with Jesus and Satan. Both are created by God. One is the rightful ruler, one is the wicked ruler. And there's that struggle, you know. When Jesus was on earth, what did Satan say? You know, just do one act of worship to me and I'll let you take over as king. And Jesus said, well, I'll wait until God gives it to me. I'm not gonna worship you to get this.
Let's see. Trevor Williams asks, can you go into detail in the scripture about what is glorious to men is disgusting in God's eyes?
Like what? You want to know the chapter and verse? I can't think of that off the top of my head. I guess, yeah. Well, you look at like everything. You know, these people who are fighting over being a Republican or a Democrat. Each one thinks that their team can fix this mess, right? And so there are people that are attaching themselves to those teams. You know, I want to be what is that called, a liberal, or I want to be a conservative, because the liberals aren't mean. They don't kill people. They do kill people, but I don't know. They act like they don't like killing people. The Republicans act like they do like killing people, so that makes the liberals somehow better. But God looks at all that stuff as foolishness. Every bit of it is foolish. The things that human beings look up to, like cutting your hair. You know, if I'm in a crowd, when I made that viral video 2 weeks ago, and I thought it was a pretty profound video. I thought I had a lot of good information in there, and you would expect that everybody coming on board would say, you know, I don't want to listen to you. I want to listen to Satan, or I really like what you had to say. But half of the stuff in there was people talking about how disgustingly nasty I look with my nasty hair. You know, it's not nasty to God.
Two people are asking about the weather in your area. So Witcher Works asks, is the weather getting bad over there? And BMW guy asks, does Satan control the weather and make hurricanes?
No, the weather's not being controlled by anybody now. I mean, it's just you know, we've got this wonderful system with I don't know, just speculating, an 800-foot canopy, and now we're down to a 50-foot canopy. That's the tops of the trees. So we had this wonderful system covering the whole earth. Everything beneath the canopy was alive. Everything interacted perfectly. And the Bible says that up until the flood, there was no such thing as rain. You know, up until the Egyptian Exodus, no such thing as insects biting people. You know, there's never a story in the Bible about insect plagues. And then after the Israelites left Egypt, you know, in that process, they started having these, and that happened earthwide. Earthwide, people were talking about bug infestations about the time that the Exodus took place. For my own personal weather right now, we didn't have it. Just as a good opportunity for me to plug my wife's video site. My wife has a YouTube channel called Living with Sustenance and Covering, and I know a lot of the people that are here listening to this know that that's there. I'll try to remember to put a link. But I actually posted a video last night of me and the wife sitting out on the porch in the middle of the hurricane, and it was just nice. I grew up, whenever there was a hurricane, everybody would go to the relative that had the most safe location, supposedly, and you know, the lights would go out really quick, and you wouldn't have any more electricity, and it'd be really hot, so all the windows and doors would be open. You'd be sitting in the house hearing that wind blow through, you know. And I've always loved that, because I associate that hurricane wind in the house with family. You know, all my cousins, my uncles and aunts, we'd all be just sitting around in the dark talking. And you could hear the wind blowing. So that's what, every time there's a hurricane, we go out on the porch and we just sit out on the porch. And so I've posted a video on my wife's channel of me and my wife sitting on the porch listening to the wind. Oh, you'll also get to hear the progress I'm making with this wonderful instrument, because I was sitting out there playing that for a little while.
Actually, Andrea Creech asks how you're doing with the flute, by the way.
Yeah, are you a flute player? Because that's what I got from one of your comments today. You said, yeah, flute, and I said, well, I'm working on it. And then Andrea said, yeah, I'm working on flute too. So I guess this isn't real time, so it'll take a while for him to get back with me. But I'm enjoying it. I mean, if you want to see what I'm doing with the flute, basically I'm no better today than I was last night. And you can go to my wife's YouTube channel and see me sitting on the porch playing it. I can do Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Andrea says that they try to play.
Yeah. Well, if you try, you'll play Mary Had a Little Lamb, even if it's by accident.
Okay, last question for tonight is from Matt C. He wants to know where did you learn about space and ancient people's views on space? And then go ahead and take us out, please.
Oh, wow. When I was reading, I've read the Bible over and over again, I think eight times so far, and I always try to read a different version of the Bible. So, like, you know, back a long time ago, I read the American Standard, or King James, Good News Bible. Then I read the New World Translation, English Standard Version. I've read that. I've read the New International Version. And I guess somehow I stumbled upon the fact that the names of the planets are different from culture to culture. So what we call Mars in the ancient past would have been called something else. You know, what we call Venus in the ancient past, and those words are in the Bible. And I thought, well, why are all of these translations translating this word differently, but none of them say Venus or Mars or Saturn? You know, everybody knows that's what they are. And so that kind of made me curious. And plus, I had done 6 years in the Navy. I was at sea for almost 5 solid years. And so I knew that the stars and the planets, the sun and the moon, had predetermined courses that they were on that humans were familiar with. That's how, for thousands of years, that's how sailors were able to find their homes, by looking at the sky and saying, well, that's the star that's over my house. And so they would follow it. And so even though I'm not really all that interested in things like astronomy, knowing that was in the Bible, that there were so many references to the planets in the Bible, and there's so many references in the Bible to the 12 constellations and the 7 planets. That's why the number 12 comes up over and over again. The number 7 comes up over and over again. That was the motivation I had to learn about the planets. I didn't really just, it's not a hobby of mine. It's something that I did because of the Bible. It's not that I was involved in astronomy and astronomy led me to this. Oh well, I hope everybody enjoyed tonight's live stream and hope that you'll be here again next week for the next show. And I enjoyed it. And remember, it's something that I want to remind everybody of, is that this is a very special group. The things that we're learning here are things that have been hidden from mankind for thousands of years. And this channel right here alone, this channel is the biggest evidence, the biggest proof that we're living in the last days right now. So stay close and just stay close. Love y'all, and as always, if you don't want to survive